Welcome to 3 Point Cyber, a podcast about cybersecurity topics and events for the layperson. The ideas, opinions, and discussions of this podcast are those of the host, co-host, and guest and do not necessarily represent the views of their respective employers or affiliates. Recording and propagation of this podcast is highly encouraged as long as an acknowledgement is given to the ownership. Music and graphics used in the podcast and promotional materials cannot be used in other events not tied to the podcast without the express written consent from Alpha Omega Advisors. Welcome again to 3 Point Cyber. This is Dave Summit, your host, and I appreciate you joining us. We are now at episode 10, and I'm going to bring on my co-host, Andrew.
Hello.
So anything new happening since our last podcast?
I'll say that I'm glad that I've been able to co-host all these podcasts. The timing has actually worked out pretty well. What is new is that this weekend I will be going to Prague for the first time.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, a good buddy of mine, he's actually in Germany. There's a group of us gonna meet in Prague, and the opportunities to travel here have not been as much as I had hoped. But yeah, this will be a nice little weekend vacation.
Yeah, well, given the world situation right now, I can imagine why it's not been conducive to good travel.
Yeah.
I'm excited about today's podcast, Andrew. We have more than one person on this time. We have a group of 5 individuals that I think we're just going to have a blast at getting this podcast. So let me set this up a little bit. This group of individuals are currently at a university, and they're finishing up studies or they're heading into additional studies. And they belong to an ethical hacking club that we will be referring to as Root as we go through this podcast. They're a group of individuals that I can't say enough about them. I don't know them all. I've just met a few of them just a few minutes ago, and a couple of them I've known for a little while. And I'm highly impressed with what they've put together and what they're doing and their direction. It's not too often that I run across younger individuals that seem to really have it together and know what they want to do and where they want to go. And it's refreshing to know that we're in these kinds of hands as we move forward in the cyber world. Cyber world's taking on a whole new meaning that it has in the last 10 years. And the career opportunities for these individuals is much greater than what my career opportunity was when I first started in the field. So I'm really excited to talk to them about this and share what they have to say about what they're doing and where they're going. Andrew, you have anything you'd like to say before we bring them on?
No, I'm anxious to hear more about ethical hacking myself.
Yeah. So I think it's an opportune time. Last podcast we had our individual on of the freshman that changed his major from computer science and going into cyber, and hopefully we answered a lot of questions for him and helped him decide what he wanted to do and where he wanted to go with it. So this one is going to be a little bit different. These individuals are already through their programs or are taking on additional studies, and I'm really anxious to hear what they have to say about where they're headed. So right after this, we will start the podcast. Well, we're back from our break. I'm excited about introducing the following individuals. And just for anonymity, is that right, Andrew?
Anonymity.
I can't say it.
Anonymity.
Just to keep this private, let's put it that way. We're not going to mention their last names or what university they're from. I think it's just a good thing for us to do. We've already had that discussion pre-podcast that you just never know who might be listening and what intent of threat actors have, because we know, and they know really well, that threat actors will use every or any piece of information to do whatever they want to do and carry out whatever they want to do to potentially make money or to harm an organization. So we thought it best to try to keep this on the privacy side and just have a straight up discussion. So I'm going to introduce these guys one at a time, and I'm going to start with Nevin. Nevin, if you would like to jump in here and just kind of give us a brief overview of kind of what you're doing, what you're studying, and kind of where you're going.
Sure. So my name's Nevin. I am a senior at the local university, so I'm wrapping up my studies. I'm studying cybersecurity as a sort of broader field. However, I'm specifically narrowing into penetration testing, more of a red team or sort of a purple team mix. I'm the current president of Root, and sort of my goal of the club is to provide technical skills to the students that attend the university, as well as anyone that's interested in learning ethical hacking.
Thank you. And we're going to get, for Andrew's sake, we're going to get to what some of these terms mean in just a few minutes. Right after we get through our introduction, we're going to talk about what red teaming is, what purple teaming is, some of those kind of concepts, because again, my intended target audience are those people that are not in this field or interested in becoming in this field. So they may hear something that they don't understand what we're talking about. I want to make sure that they walk away here understanding that particular term. So let's move down to Christopher. Chris, if you'd like to jump in there, please.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Chris. Just like Nevin, I'm finishing up my senior year studies at our local university. I'm not exactly sure what avenue I'm going to go down in the world of cyber, but I think being part of our club, which I'll go into my role, I think being part of our club has definitely helped kind of lead me down my path more so and kind of given me a better understanding. But in terms of my position within the club, I am the social media organizer. So I am responsible for organizing our means of communication to get meeting information and what's going on to our club members in a thorough way so that they are informed on what's going on in the club so they're not left in the dark. And other than that, I'm just an active member in the club.
Okay, very good. Jordan.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I've just finished up my senior year in my undergrad at the local university. My plan is to go back for a master's in cybersecurity. I'm really looking forward to just expanding my knowledge base with penetration testing and the actual coursework that goes with that. My plan is to take the CISSP recently after finishing my undergrad. My overall role in the club has been the secretary, which has been essentially note-taking, just looking to keep track of who we've had come in, keeping their contact information for us, and then also like just recording, seeing who's coming in to the club and seeing how our club's growing. But I would say overall, the club has been a very, very big influence in my career aspirations in cybersecurity. I've seen far more than I have in a lot of my classes just being in that club. I've experienced the offense, defense, and a little bit of in between with all the roles that can be in cybersecurity. I think platforms like Hack the Box and whatnot that I've been introduced to because of the club has been fantastic. And I would highly recommend anyone who is curious in cybersecurity to look into extracurriculars and clubs to meet with people.
Good. Thank you, Jordan. All right, Sam.
So I'm a senior at our local university. So I'm, part of the club as well. I'm our technical lead. So I work a lot with Nevin, planning out the meetings, and like he said, I'm very offensive minded, looking to become a penetration tester in the next year.
Okay, very good. Now, you all of you have said something that has already been brought up in our last kind of interview with the freshmen. And I'm glad to hear that because it means that we were on the right track of trying to give him some guidance. But I'm really curious here first to kind of understand, how did your club get together? What was the when and what was the basis of it? How did it start?
So the club started back in 2019. It was started by a previous student that now is in the information security, more specifically the penetration testing field. She started it because the sort of industry path is not very technical, so it's more business related. If I remember correctly, you take about almost 2 or 3 times the amount of business courses compared to cyber courses. And what she felt, along with a couple other students that helped her start the club, is that it wasn't preparing her or any other students at the local university enough for real world experience. So therefore she started the club not only to provide students a way to gain more technical skills and sort of learn more about the industry, whether it's blue team, red team, defense, offense, stuff like that, but also to sort of network and help students meet local professionals.
Very good. Nevin, I'm going to ask you to do one thing real quick. Move your microphone down below your mouth just a little bit. I'm getting a lot of pops on your talk, so I think that'll probably help out.
Is that better?
Oh, much better. So, Andrew, there was something he said there that we brought up in that interview with the freshman.
Yeah, you're talking about getting into a specific area and not generalizing.
Not generalizing. And a couple of the recommendations we had. Number one, we brought up exactly what Jordan had just mentioned. If you're interested in this field at all, go get involved in some clubs, go do some extracurricular activity, because it's just important that you understand and you start learning a little bit about different aspects of cyber and what might be interested to you and not interested. Because I think what you guys are probably finding out is there's a lot of things to do inside the cyber field. That's what to me is exciting about cyber. You can't get bored. If you're in one area and you're starting to get bored in that area, all you got to do is just flip over to something else. You got something else to do. Is that what you guys are finding?
For me personally, it's what I've been finding. So I've worked a couple jobs in the past and they've all been blue team related. So I've actually been working with the blue team and I'm realizing I do enjoy it and I do enjoy red team. So that's why I'm sort of going maybe in between the middle, but I enjoy it more offensive.
Yeah.
But in general, it's the way to go within anything is sort of going and just diving deep into some specific subject.
Okay. We're going to talk about those teams in just a minute.
Okay.
So everybody can understand what these teams are, because they are very important in the cyber field. The other thing I wanted to bring up, Andrew, is to kind of focus on something, but he also mentioned something that they were getting inside these clubs that they weren't getting inside the classroom. And that was some good hands-on stuff, good experience stuff, real world stuff. And you heard me mention that That's one of my complaints with university classes and the programs is they're not putting their students into the real world scenarios as they should, because we're getting students outside of coming fresh off their bachelor's and fresh off their master's, and we almost have to retrain them or train them into the area we need them in, which tells me that they're not getting the practical experience they need. They're just getting some book knowledge, which is not a bad thing. But, when you're coming to me with ready to run and hit the ground running, I'm looking for some experience when I'm hiring. And to me, these clubs like this is that experience that will set you apart from anybody else that's taking cyber programs and they're not applying themselves extracurricularly, or they're not doing internships, or they're not working somewhere else. So you guys, kudos to you guys right now for even doing something like this. So let's talk about the red team, or just the teaming concept. Let's start off with red team. Who wants to take red team and kind of give a quick overview of what red teaming is?
I just wanted to add actually one thing on to Nevin. I was trying to find my way in to add it on to what he was talking about in terms of our club. I think it's also worth mentioning that through the university, just universities in general, a student can be, academically gifted, or also known as like a bookworm, and they could be good at studying, study sets, and they can get the grades and they can coast through their 4 years or however many years of the university and just get their degree. And you can know like key concepts and like the textbook definitions of some things, but come time for like actual interviews where they actually ask you, like, have you ever actually applied the knowledge you've learned? And you kind of start shaking or shrugging their like shoulders or scratching their head. I think it's really important that by being a part of a club like we all are, in terms of like actually digging into the world of cyber, you need to get your hands dirty before, you got to actually like not be afraid to start digging in. You can't just like think about, oh, it'd be cool if I actually started doing something. You actually got to like apply yourself and try that, because that will open up so many more doors. And I know by just joining this club back when it was started and being a part of it, I've met some really, really like helpful people that have guided me. And we've kind of built like a community where we all help each other. And if there's anything, I just had an interview and I was honestly really scared, and I've had resources like Jordan, Sam, and Nevin. They've helped break things down for me, kind of showed me the ropes, and it went a lot better than I think it would have if I hadn't been part of the club and never met them. So I'm grateful for that.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that, because that's exactly what we've been saying. And Andrew, I think we might be able to pull our first point out of this 3-point cyber. And that one is, when we get there, students nowadays need to be applying themselves extracurricularly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll take this from the military point of view. We talk about the art and the science of warfare. So the science is the field manuals, learning the technicalities of how to conduct an attack, how to conduct an ambush, movement formations. But the art is applying that in particular terrain and being able to do it in, real world scenarios. You need one, but you need the science, but the art is where it all really comes together.
And I think that's important too, because, I've heard people in cyber that has not had formal education and they kind of blow off formal education. I'm like, you can't do that. They both go hand in hand. If you really want to excel and be extremely good in whatever you're doing, at some point, you need to go back and get some of the education behind it. And there's reasons for that. Not necessarily to learn what you already know, but you're going to learn groundwork and other things that are going to help you make the application more relative to what you're doing. And that's the important part of the education side of the house. So let's get back to the teaming thing. Who wants to take on red team definition?
So first off, let me say I'm by no means as technically smart in penetration testing as Sam and Nevin are. But from an actual conceptual view, I would view it as you're looking at the order of a system and you're trying to introduce chaos into it, where you're looking to find these connections between various systems. Systems nowadays, the internet, it's all interconnected by the actual name, as you would see. But the point of it is to see what are these connections linking to, what resources are valuable behind them, and then looking how you can break those connections in unique and exploitative ways. Where, for example, if you had like a web server that had like an SQL database behind it, you're looking for these little avenues to pivot. You're looking for a small vulnerability to grow into this giant gaping hole that can pull all this information. And from that, a white hat hacker with someone who's on a good side, who has good intentions behind it, they're not looking to use penetration testing as a way of ill-gotten gains. They're looking at it to see what can we break, how did we break it, and how can we fix that? How can we plug that hole? So overall, I would say penetration testing is finding that chaos within the order and then looking to, again, convert it back into order where it's like, hey, this is what's wrong with our systems. Here's where this one little chain could break the whole link. And here's how we can strengthen it.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that it's the red team then that's trying to introduce that chaos.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's correct. Yeah, what you hope, Andrew, is if your company is resourced enough and have the opportunity to have a red team, you want them to be able to find the vulnerability before the bad guy does. And that's the whole purpose of red team. You get out there and you do threat hunting. You look for things that can break your systems or get into your systems so that you can fix them before anybody else can ever have that chance. And that's what a red team does. So, okay, so let's move on to purple team.
So purple team's sort of like the happy medium between red and blue. So you have red as the offensive of trying to introduce chaos or trying to break into a system. You use blue as the defensive, which is trying to support your organization, but there's going to be a fine line between security and usability. If you make things too secure, users or clients are not going to be able to use them as easily. And that sort of throws in a haywire trying to find that balance. Purple teaming sort of mixes them together. So it's a red teaming operation, but also working along with the blue team. So you're seeing how your attacks, whether they get picked up by the blue team, what's sort of the reaction the blue team has, and it's sort of a cat and mouse game going back and forth, figuring out what's the best way to not only make your defense stronger, but also introduce new ways for your red team to sort of grow and prosper within their sort of organizations and endeavors.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, was that clear for you?
I think so. My initial thought, again, going back to military experience, because we use red and blue for its kind of terminology. Red being the enemy, blue friendly. So in this case, I would think, red's the attackers, blue's the defenders. And when I heard purple team, the thing that popped into my head was like the observer controllers, the mediators between the red and blue, looking for lessons learned kind of things. But I don't know if that's applicable here.
It's very applicable. It's mainly, as you said, like a mediator. So you're a mediation between the red team's objectives and the blue team's objectives. So you're seeing what's working and you're relaying what's working to each side so that not only they can strengthen their sort of endeavors, but also sort of prosper and figure out how to increase the strength and sort of security of the organizations.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to those teams? Did we get the teams all covered there, Andrew?
I think so.
Okay, good. Jordan, let me ask you a question. What got you into cyber to begin with?
So I've grown up around computers my entire life. My dad runs his own IT company. So he'd always bring tech back and I would be given the opportunity to just break it. I've always been interested in breaking and fixing things, especially when it comes to computers where you just see all these intricate things they can do and you think at a rudimentary level, can I break it? Like it creates this very polished image in the like the end result, but it's also, you want to learn how it does those processes. And on a grander scale, then you look at companies where it's like they have all these systems and they all work together to create this product. Well, how can I break it? That's kind of where it goes into my head, where it's how can I break it? And more so to that point, how can I fix those issues? Mm-hmm. So actually getting into cybersecurity, I knew when I went into my higher education that I wanted to do something with computers. And I had originally looked at computer science, but I also saw behind it, it's like, oh, you need to take physics, you need to take discrete math, all this stuff where it got away from the point of what I was interested in about, which was breaking things, because that's more so like how to build those things up from the very, very ground levels. So then I went to cybersecurity where I was looking at systems, seeing how are these systems created, like these bigger pieces of the puzzle, which end up being like companies and at this rate, like the entire globe. How does the globe operate with each other? How do countries and global corporations, how do they talk to each other? How do they do business with one another? So I got into cybersecurity that way, being interested in it from a very young age and then getting really into it, starting at the local university. It was a lot of business classes, as they'd said, but then getting more into it, there were some classes that had cyber related stuff and some of them started getting into virtual machines and doing a little bit of penetration testing. But the club is far and away what really got me to the actual technical hands-on level of learning cybersecurity, learning through CTFs, such as like the Cyber League and doing the Hack the Box CTFs and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So, and what is your ultimate dream job?
Ultimate dream job, to be honest, it's still up in the air with which team I'd want to be on. I think I would want to be more so a team lead in my ultimate dream job, because on top of getting the cybersecurity degree, I also got a management degree, because I do see a lot of value in the technical skills, but I also see a lot, like a very equal emphasis on the soft skills and learning how to coordinate with the team. I think, again, that's where being in an executive team with Root has been invaluable, like getting to talk with them, getting to network with them, getting to learn how to actually cooperate on a team in CTFs, it has been just by far one of the best experiences I've had so far in cybersecurity.
Very good. Sam, I ask you the same question. What got you into cyber, and what would be your ultimate dream job?
For me, I came into university completely undecided. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And it was pretty funny when I committed to being a cyber major because my mom works in higher education, and she had been telling me for years because she has had some colleagues that were, in those departments. And she was like, this would be right up your alley. This is, I grew up messing around with computers too and playing video games and all that good stuff. And she was always telling me, you should get into this. You should get into this. And I kind of just, I was really naive. I ended up taking a class and I met Nevin, and I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. Like, this is definitely what I want to be doing. I've never been one for school, but, I kind of slacked off, didn't do my assignments or anything. And once I started taking my cyber classes, it was like I was doing stuff around the clock. Like even reading a textbook chapter would take me hours because it's like I go off on all these tangents. And I mean, that's just how ADHD is. But it really like brought out something to me that I hadn't seen before. And that's kind of how I knew I was where I wanted to be.
Good.
And I think for dream job, I definitely want to be red team. I definitely want to do pen testing. I want to work in a team of people, working. I don't want to work inside a single company. I want to work pen testing multiple companies. So working in a team with people, I think is
okay. All right. Chris?
In terms of where I started out, I mean, I was similar to Sam in terms of like I kind of grew up with technology and like video games and whatnot. And I mean, I was known as like the tech wizard of my household because I knew how to power cycle my router when it would turn off. And I was like the wizard for that. In terms of looking for like, I guess when I was a senior in high school, right before I was making the big decision where I'm going to go, I was trying to figure out exactly what would be my best fit because I knew something tech related would be my kind of go-to. And I looked at computer science because that's where many schools and universities would offer it with the title, computer science. And after taking some programming classes in high school, it got a really bad rep, not to blame my teacher, but like a little bit on her end. But so I was like, computer science, not really my forte. So I want to do something computer related. I don't want to be an engineer. Where do I go from here? And then at one of the career fairs, our university, one of the representatives was there, and he was talking about how they have a computer cybersecurity major as an actual full-blown major. And then I was like, oh, that's really interesting. That sounds very intriguing as well. My dad was pushing me to do it as well. He's like, that sounds like something you might be interested in. One thing led to another, and that's how I ended up enrolling at the university. And then as a freshman, I ended up, joining the board for the club, and I've had nothing but success in the club. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Good. Did I hear the dream job in there?
I didn't throw that in there, no. In terms of where I want to exactly go still, I'm not entirely sure because I haven't really gotten that much in real world experience, and I'm hoping my internship for this summer is going to really, I'm going to get my foothold in the door, and I'm going to actually get a little taste of the different areas of cyber, which I'm very excited for.
That's good. It's amazing. I sit here and hear you guys and you're starting your careers, and what you are going to see in the span that I've been in the field is going to be amazing. Nevin, what about you?
Sure. So I came to the local university not like undecided. More specifically, my sort of role path going into a pre-med sort of discipline and going into med school for becoming a doctor, more specifically with like oncology, so cancer research. I also was always sort of a techie kid. I grew up building computers, messing with computers, video games, stuff like that. And then my whole sort of life changed once I met the creator of our club, and she sort of got me into like cybersecurity, introducing me to Hack the Box, stuff like that, which has sort of spanned me into where I am now and allowed me to grow into the spot I'm currently having and the success I've had so far. So I owe everything pretty much to her. But yeah, I've worked a couple jobs in the past, mainly blue team stuff, and it's always been an joy, and I'm always out there trying to learn more. I like to learn. I like to help people. That's why I went to med school. And instead of doing almost going down the pre-med route, but my decision, instead of going to med school, I can still help people out with cybersecurity by securing companies without having to do the 8 years of schooling.
So I'm really glad you said that. As you guys know, I've been in CISO for healthcare for over 10 years. And the last one was with a fantastic organization, a cancer care organization. You quickly realize that what you're doing in your cyber teams and IT teams is you're enabling those people that have gone to the field to apply their lives to curing cancer or to help people get better or curing diseases. And it's all necessary in today's world because technology has its fingers in everything. And if without the technologists and without the people that are securing this technology, it would be a rough go. So whatever you're doing, you're making a difference. No matter what organization you're going to and you're going to work for, you're going to make a difference because you're doing the right thing and helping to ensure that business carries out its business in a secure manner. Andrew, you have anything to bring up?
I think we're going to get into the club. If I could just start off, because I know you're going to have a lot of questions. So I'll bring up my initial question here first. And it's an ethical hacking club, correct?
Yes,
Is
that's
that
correct.
yeah?
It's correct.
So my question to start this off is ethical used as a disclaimer? In other words, is it just another way of saying we're good hackers, or do you all put more thought into what ethical hacking is or means?
At least for me, what it means, it's more of a, because what we're doing essentially is a lot of it is just practicing against, like on websites like Hack the Box, where they give you a vulnerable system and you're just practicing on like, okay, how would I approach this if I were in the field and this is something I were to see, right? And so I think with just the disclaimer or the tag over it, it's more of a, what is our mindset with it, right? So like once I'm in the field, like, am I practicing this for my own benefit to, be like a unethical hacker, or am I practicing this so I can go in the field and make a difference and do something positive? And I think that's more of what it is, more than anything. Other people can chime in for sure, but that's just kind of how I think about it.
I have something to add real quick. The ethical hacking is also like giving students the ability to like safely learn how to hack with like a simulated environment. So it's also giving them, like, we're using a platform called Hack the Box. So as Sam said, they give you sort of a vulnerable system that you can practice hacking onto. But it's also like, if you're teaching students to practice hacking on these vulnerable systems that are all fully simulated, have no true effect on whatsoever, like information security, stuff like that, you're also preventing the student from going out, looking at a YouTube video, and then start scanning the like internet and trying to find out how to hack. So it's not only like allowing us to practice and sort of get ready for the field, but it's also sort of trying to help prevent students from just going out and practicing hacking on a random company they find on the internet.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, the premise of your question is what really is ethical hacking and what is not ethical hacking. In the ethical hacking world, Andrew, the mantra really is do no harm.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering. If the term here is more, hey, we're the good guys, as opposed to hackers going in for malicious purposes. But at the same time, there are people who believe they're doing the right thing by hacking into certain systems and say, in order to, for example, going in because they believe that a government isn't being honest. They go in, hack government computers, and then release a bunch of information. I guess that's what I was just wondering if y'all had any.
So let me ask it a different way for them. When you guys started your ethical hacking club, what kind of guidance did you have, and from whom, when you created this club?
So when it was created, we were basically all told to sign waivers holding the university not liable. And the main motto, which is you always sign your life away no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. The main motto of the club was still the focus of teaching students the technical skills revolving around hacking, like not even ethical hacking, blue team, stuff like that, so that they can exceed in the career, but also doing it in a safe environment using like Hack the Box. So we do understand that like we are teaching students things that they can use on their own end. However, we hold the students accountable and trust them that they're not going to go out and be like a malicious bad actor. So and just create havoc on a local network.
If I could just add on to what Nevin was saying, in terms of just like obviously what we pick up in the club, instead of just like the concepts that you would be taught in these cyber courses at school, I think we also really put emphasis on application. So we could also like for example, like learning what a hashing algorithm is. And I guess, I'm very into like password cracking. That's probably like my forte. I just find it really interesting and stuff like that. Like within the club, like we could talk about like what a hash is, but then also we would pair that with like a program such as Hashcat, which is used to actually crack hashes. And we kind of just go through the hoops and the process on how to do it. And then we'll say, okay, you guys want to try it yourself. And then they could try it themselves. So they're actually developing those critical thinking skills and by actually going through the steps and procedures, as opposed to just saying, this is how you do it, any questions, and then having them leave. They actually get their hands on, which I think is just super important.
That is extremely important, because I can tell you, I have seen individuals that can sit there and tell you exactly how to use Mimikatz, for example, or any other password cracking software. They can tell you how to do it. And then when you set them down to do it, they can't do it. And that's the difference between getting your hands-on experience with what you guys are doing in these events and just basically your labs than those that are not getting it. And again, that's the difference between, to me, someone coming out of college just sitting in classes and then trying to go to work, than those sitting in classes and doing extracurricular activity and applying what they're learning and then going to work. And there's a huge difference between the two.
I think that's really where the strength of the moniker ethical hacking comes from, and that it puts out that image to people that you don't have to always think of hacking as a negative thing. Where you see in movie, media, whatever, it's always, this hacking, it's always done by a bad actor where, oh yeah, I hacked into this government, I stole this, I stole that. I think for the most part, especially for me, having those sandbox environments where you're doing no harm, it's learning in a controlled environment. It gives you the opportunity to actually learn the hacking without fear that you're doing something that should not be done. It's more so, I have this environment that is set up on like a service like Hack the Box or whatnot, and it doesn't have to be hosted. You can set your own up. That's another good thing. Like you can have a Raspberry Pi, you can create your own machine, put the vulnerabilities on it, and then crack it. But getting to the point, having the opportunity to say, this is ethical hacking. We want everyone to learn how to do this in a safe and meaningful way, where you're being intentional with what you're doing. You're being cautious of who does this impact. You're not just going in and firing and forgetting. It's doing it in an ethical where you're getting permission. You're being intentional. You're using the right tools. You're not going guns blazing, like you're not scanning a network max speed, setting off all the alarms and everything. Like you're learning how to do things the right way. And I think that's where ethical hacking is a very good term.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good definition, Jordan, because there is a fine line there can be a really fine line between ethical hacking and unethical hacking. You may have good intentions, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it ethically. And your key point there was permission, and you never want to go at red teaming events or penetration testing without someone knowing you're doing it and you have the permission to do it. So that's a big key indicator of an ethical hack or a non-ethical hack. As you mentioned, the word hacking itself has a negative connotation in our culture, and we're trying to change that because you stop and think about it. How many of us have had let's say a childhood toy that we really liked, and at some point you liked it so well you started tearing it apart to see how it worked? That, in essence, is what hacking is. You're hacking it down to understand how it works. And that's what we're doing now in cyber, is we're tearing things apart to see how it works and see what kind of vulnerabilities are in it, or to see how, even if it can be made better. That's a hacking event as well. Okay, how many people are in the club right now?
Total group membership, we have around 40-ish active participants. It ranges from like 15 to 20.
Nice.
We host a club Friday nights from 6 to 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the ideal time for college students to go learn more regarding school on a Friday night, and so they could be doing other things. However, it's a time that works for us because it allows speakers. If we have speakers coming, they're off work typically around 5-ish. And it also shows dedication, because if you're coming to the club at like 6 o'clock at Friday night, you're there to learn, you're there to further your education instead of doing other things you could be doing.
Yeah, hence another reason why we're all called nerds.
Exactly.
Yeah, Friday night, really? You're going to have me doing this on Friday night? So I think it's fantastic that you guys have done this, and you're keeping the club going, and I hope you guys continue to keep that club going. So let's talk a little bit about some of the activities you guys have done over the past year. The event's called CTF. Andrew, that's Capture the Flag events.
Okay.
You do Capture the Flag in your world. Well, they do it in cyber as well. So you guys talk to me any of the recent or past year or two ones that you guys are really proud of. I want to hear some good moments.
Sure. So I personally have been doing CTFs since around 2019, so the past 3 years. The ones I'm mostly proud of for this group in general is the NCL, or the National Collegiate League. A lot of our members in the club, a couple of our members placed in the top 100 position out of 6,000. And then we also placed, I think our goal was to place top 100, but I think we might have placed the top 120 out of NCL, out of the 3,000 teams participating. That was also after the big security convention in the local area, B-Sides. So the B-Sides at our local area, we competed at that competition as well and placed third in their Hack the Box CTF. And then we're also just, another thing we love to do is just get together and play CTFs. So whenever we find one, we all have the free time. We're there 24/7 just trying to work and see how far we can go.
Nice. So this was the last B-Sides they had? You ended up finishing third?
Correct.
Nice.
One of our teams placed third.
Yeah, nice.
And somebody can explain what Capture the Flag actually looks like. What do y'all do?
So basically, here, Chris, you want to take it?
Yeah, I was gonna say I could take it from Nevin. Basically just like capture. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Capture the Flag events that are held. They're comprised of different challenges that have varying categories and areas of like cyber. Some of the categories could be like reverse engineering, cryptography, steganography, which is embedding secret messages or data within images, open source intelligence, which I know is a favorite of Jordan, and I know a lot of people in the club do like doing open source intelligence because it's just so fascinating, me included. Password cracking was a category for NCL, which I know Sam and I also really like. And basically within all these challenges, obviously they have these different categories. You just got to look out for which category you're in, because the end goal in these CTF challenges for each challenge, because obviously within the category, there's different, questions you could say. The end result is you get the flag, which is usually a little bit of text. That's like this little phrase that you'll input into a text field in order to get the received points for honing or completing or solving the challenge. And Yeah, it's pretty much just a bunch of different challenges that vary from difficulty, easy to hard, and they get progressively harder. And you just got to try to apply your knowledge in those like different subcategories.
So you mentioned open source intelligence. Just give me an example. Can somebody give me an example of what a recent challenge in that area was?
I have a really good example, and I think my friends here will be okay if I talk about this one. This was from the Team NCL game, and basically the challenge was called Rendezvous. And basically, we're given this picture of rendezvous.jpg, and that was the only thing that we received from the challenge. And it wanted to know where the rendezvous point is, what city it was taken in. And it basically was this little picture, and we tried running tools to try to extract the EXIF data, which is just the metadata within images, to try to get like some read on the image. And we weren't getting anything like that, but we had to kind of put on our thinking caps and really like look at it from a different perspective and whatnot. And one thing led to another, and we were able to find that there were certain elements in the picture we were able to isolate and use to our advantage to eventually solve the challenge together, which was just super satisfying to all figure out together.
So if I can get this straight, when you first received the JPEG, your first inclination was to look at the metadata behind and not the picture itself.
It's just automatically where I go usually,
Okay.
because I mean, yeah, you can look at the image and like it could say like, oh, the flag is right here. Obviously, if it's right there at you, but personally, when you first looked at the image, there wasn't a lot going on. It was just like a lot of, I don't know, it was kind of like a blur to me until you really started looking into it deeper. But
Yeah, Chris, I've got the file up. It was essentially, it's just a photo of a wall, and you have like this reflective floor. You have like this grid ceiling with lights, and there's like this blurry transit map. There's like a sign that kind of looks like it's an exit sign. And then you have like this advertising material up, and you try and look at these different elements of it. And as Chris was saying, there's different parts that you can look at. So this was a whole team effort. It was Chris, me, Nevin, Sam, and one of our other executive members, Tony, who's the VP. Essentially, we all just dedicated to it. Like, okay, what are we going to look at? And it snowballed pretty quickly. That's by far my favorite experiences from the most recent CTF, where we took the image, we touched it up in Photoshop, increased contrast, sharpness, and whatnot. We first tried looking at the transit map, nothing. Like we couldn't get anything legible from it. We looked at the advertising material, looked at the floor, the ceiling, nothing. And then we had started looking at a tool called Yandex, which is essentially like a Russian Google. And we did reverse image searching, and we started screenshotting different parts of the image to see if we could get a return. And we had screenshotted the exit sign. It says USEXI, which doesn't show much. But then if you look in the reflection on the ground, you can see the full sign. So we pulled that, screenshotted it. We found the font in the reverse image search that looked similar to an airport in Italy. And then we went further and further and further. We looked at, okay, what are airports in Italy? And then we found, okay, there's like 13 of them. And then we went further down. We just kept snowballing. And we ended up finding the exact airport and the exact city. It's so fascinating. That's where OSINT is. It can go anywhere. You need to be able to look at these little crumbs and find the whole loaf of bread hidden behind somewhere. So that challenge was amazing. Chris did a fantastic job. Tony, everyone, the entire team did a fantastic job.
So, Andrew, I want to point out one thing here. Is you're hearing them describe this and talk about this is why cyber is so fascinating to be in, and it's just so fun to be in. But the biggest thing that I want users to hear, as Chris was talking about it, as Jordan was just talking about it, you can hear it in their voice about how much they like this stuff. And that's what it takes to be really, really good in cyber. So you guys cannot lose that. You guys can't lose that love for this field. You got to keep that going. And you're absolutely right. That part of cyber is my favorite as well. Human intelligence and operational intelligence is fantastic, and I love to do that because I think there's just so much going on there. I'm excited. I just had a positive comeback on a request for someone to join me on a future podcast that is in human intelligence, and she is fantastic and one of the top in that category. And I hope you guys will tune in and listen to that particular podcast. But her name is Jenny Radcliffe. She's from overseas. She's not here in the United States. But I heard her first in conference a couple of years ago, and I knew I had, at some point, I was going to cross her path again. And it just so happens the podcast time was like, okay, I got to have her on here because she has some fantastic stories about how she can penetrate organizations just on human intelligence, just by hacking the human. The point, again, is there's so many areas of cyber that is exciting to be in, and all it takes is you to find that one spark that you really like to do, and that's what you need to be focusing on. So I'm going to kind of wrap up here a little bit with the question I'm going to ask all of you guys. If you had one piece of advice to an incoming person that is thinking about getting into the cyber field, what would that one piece of advice be? Jordan, we'll start with you.
I would say cybersecurity from like going into the field, it can't just be education. You have to have that desire to want to learn more. It's not a super descriptive phrase to go with, but I think just learn more is the key to what's been my favorite part over the past few years in cybersecurity. It's finding these concepts you don't know. And instead of just saying, okay, well, I don't know it, I'm moving on. It's, I don't know it, I want to learn more about it. It's going into following up, like going into those next steps with it. And I think that's where clubs and extracurriculars, as I've said, those are where it really, really is. It's demonstrated, where you get to see with other people around you, what don't I know? What do they know? And then getting to learn more from them and from learning together.
Good. Thank you. Nevin?
So I think majority of people in my sort of age category have seen the movie Finding Nemo. And I was asked this question previously, and the one piece of advice I can say is just keep swimming. So cybersecurity is a very difficult field, and especially trying to learn technical skills, and you're going to struggle. So my biggest piece of advice, as I said, is just keep swimming. So just keep persistent, trying to learn, just trying to keep up with it, and just have patience. It takes time.
That's good advice, Nevin. And I'll tell you this, it's been over 30 years for me, and you're right. There's not a day does not go by that I'm not learning something. You have to be open to continual learning. Sam?
Yeah, I was just about to say what you said. You have to accept that it was one of the things that kind of took me a while, because I'm sort of a like completionist, and I always push myself. I want to, be like the best that I can be. And it's one of those things you have to accept that no matter how much you study or how much you learn and how much you do or think you know, you don't know, because there's always going to be stuff to learn. And I think that's, it's a double-edged sword. It's something that's amazing about the field, and it's something that is going to deter certain people. And I think for me, it wasn't able to, push me away, but I think it's something you have to know coming into the field that, you have to be able to accept that you're not going to be able to learn and know everything about it.
Okay. Chris?
I think my best piece of advice that I can give is to try to eliminate the uncertainties and like the restrictions that would hold you back from taking like a step forward, or, actually trying to pursue something else. Because if I just talk about when I first came here freshman year, in terms of like when I first joined the club, I was like, obviously I'm surrounded by like much more knowledgeable people. Like, am I ever gonna like, progress here? And I was super uneasy. And this is when like position opportunities were open, like to become get on the executive board. And I remember somebody in the back that was like a higher up said, whoever's like committed and wants to grow, like you guys should try to like go for these roles. And like at the time I was like super nervous to do it, and I ended up doing it, and I'm super grateful that I did it. I mean, that was that perspective, that take on it. But I think it's just super important to realize that nothing's ever going to work first try. And I think you got to mess up things a couple of times before you get it right. And through our mistakes, I think there's better learning to be had. I mean, I was putting together a presentation for one of my classes on Kerberos, and I know I texted Nevin a bunch of times, and I kept texting him incorrect information until I finally got it right. And he's like, there you go. You finally got it right. So now I'm proficient. I can like talk about Kerberos comfortably now. Now, like I have this kind of mindset in terms of coding. It's like, if I had a project, it's like, oh, I don't know where to begin with that. I don't want to I have this really cool idea, but now I don't want to I know I'm not going to be able to do it. It's like, I write these lines of code, I get error, try recompiling it, try like restructuring my code until I get it right. And then you have that aha moment. And it's like, through your errors, you were able to reach like your finished product, which would be like you as an individual, like you were able to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm. You show some extreme wisdom right there, Chris, because I think there's too many people that try to enter cyber thinking they're going to be the know-it-all, and they're going to absorb it all, and they think they can learn it all and then be it all. And that's just not possible in cyber. No matter who you run across, you're going to find someone that can do it better than you, and they can do it faster than you. I don't care what your level is. If you've been in the field for 30 years and you think you've got it down, there's going to be someone is going to come along, and they're going to knock you off that chair. So I think what you just said is extremely important, and I think is a good lesson, that if you are stuck in a position that you're having difficulty with, drop the ego, go find someone that knows what they're doing, and start running that by them as well, because that's how you learn. For a good career and to excel in your career, don't ever take the path of least resistance. Now, let me explain. If you're on the path of least resistance, it means everything you got going is lining up for you exactly the way you want it, which means you're not learning something along the way. You need to have paths of resistance in front of you to learn how to overcome those resistant paths. And that's the way you grow yourself. So I think if you're in a situation where there's resistance going on, even this is with good people skills as well. If you've got someone in your path that's causing you issues, learn how to work through that. Don't just walk away from it and avoid it, because that's going to be a lesson learned you're going to have to use someplace down the road. Anything else, Andrew, you'd like to add?
Yeah, well, we could go through a whole thing about people trying to take obstacles away from young people and thinking that that's helping them out in life.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably for another discussion. But this was a great podcast to have after period, but particularly after our last one. Yeah, I've had a lot of schooling in my life, but I would say that my biggest education didn't come through the classroom. It came learning on my, finding out things and continuing my education on my own. So, and a lot of what you all are doing with the club is great because it's creating a different way to learn. But yeah, if people are having difficulties in their classes, I encourage them to find another avenue, not to drop school, but to find, a different way to learn the subject that clicks for them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andrew. This has been a fantastic podcast, guys. I think it's probably one of the better ones that we've had. And I'm really looking forward to getting it out there and getting some feedback on it. I think you guys have answered a lot of good questions. So I really appreciate you guys joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, we're back for our 3-point segment for this episode. We've had a great episode with the guys from the local hacking club at the local university. If you haven't listened to that, you need to go back and listen to that episode. These guys are actually really intelligent. I'm very impressed with where they are with their studies and where they're headed. It's good to know, Andrew, that we have a good future ahead of us.
Yes, I definitely agree. They were very enthusiastic about what they are doing, and that's refreshing to see.
Yeah, I've noticed that whenever, especially in my career where I've had to interview potential new ones, the ones that are most enthusiastic and really have a passion for the field, it really shows, and it makes a big difference in your hiring decisions. And I'm very impressed. I think they're going to go a long way. So what do you got for us to pull out 3 points for this segment?
Okay, I think the first one is that all hacking is not bad.
That's a great one. Typically, most people hear about hacking and they automatically think something negative about it. And that's not what hacking necessarily is in the cyber field. Hacking, for the most part, can be a good thing. And of course, it can be bad, but we're approaching it from the good side. And the good side means that hacking is looking at things and taking things apart and looking for vulnerabilities that can be exploited, which causes problems in systems and softwares. And that's kind of what the good hacking is all about. It's getting to it before the bad guy can get to it.
There you go.
All right, number 2.
Number 2. Now, this one is similar to one of our points in the last podcast, but considering we're dealing with college age here, I'd say it's worth reiterating as well. But getting involved in clubs, internships, extracurricular activities in order to get real world experience while still in college.
Excellent. Yeah. One of the problems I've seen is they start off in college and they think going to classes is enough. And that's just not the case. As big and wide open as cyber is, if you're going to college or university or college for cyber, you need to be doing more than just going to class. You need to get yourself involved in some extracurricular activities, just like these guys did. They got involved in the local hacking club, and it's made a huge difference, and you can hear it in their voices that they absolutely love it and that they've learned a lot by doing it. Get involved in those clubs so you can go on to competitions that help you master what you're trying to get done. So, I can't say enough about doing extra work while you're going to college. Finally, number 3.
Number 3, I would say that this would also apply in general for people because, no one does anything by themselves, completely by themselves, but that's build communities and relationships and start thinking that way at a young age.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. In cyber field, there are a lot of organizations that you can get involved with. The earlier you get involved with them, the better off you're going to be in your career. Like, for instance, ISACA is a good one. ISSA is a good organization to get involved with. If you have a chance to belong to a local InfraGard, that's an FBI initiative with public and private sector. That's an excellent one to get involved with. So those kinds of things are what you need to do to kind of continue to build your network, so to speak, because networking is huge in cyber. You can't do this alone, and you are going to, at some point, you're going to need extra eyes, extra ears, and extra input on what you're doing. So those are 3 great points, Andrew, and I'm glad we had this episode. I'm looking forward to the next episode. That's with the People Hacker, Jenny Radcliffe. Yeah, that was a good one, and we're working on getting that one published right now. So, thanks again, Andrew. Appreciate your participation here and your help and assistance for this podcast.
As always.
Thank you for listening to 3 Point Cyber, a production from Alpha Omega Advisors. If you have questions about this episode or have a topic for discussion or guest you would like us to have on, please email us at 3pointcyber@gmail.com. That's 3, the number 3, point, P-O-I-N-T, cyber, C-Y-B-E-R, all one word, 3pointcyber@gmail.com. We encourage you to share this podcast with others. This podcast is owned and produced by Alpha Omega Advisors. The theme song was created by music producer Andrew Van Wert in Nashville, Tennessee. This is Dave Summit, and until next time, keep on learning.